Hey everyone, it's Maribel Blue with a new Pathetically Unfiltered. If you are new here to this channel, please take a moment and consider subscribing and hit the bell notification. That way you will get notified when I upload a new video. And if you are not new, welcome back. As a reminder, I am still doing my Serve Box fundraiser. Get a box of soap, lotion, freebies, all for $25. So log into servebox.com and start making your pre-order purchase. Today we are going to talk about something serious, not related to politics at all. We are going to talk about that rapper David, who has been arrested for this young girl, Celeste, who was in his car. Now, it seemed that the story has been going on for months now, and he was not arrested right away, but he was arrested recently. I'm going to go ahead and share a portion of Nancy Grace. You know how she is. Nancy Grace does not play when it comes to things like this. I'm going to offer a little bit of my insight on the parenting part of it. A young girl interested in an older guy. It's just very, very crazy. Just so you know, viewer discretion is advised. There is some graphic nature in this video that I'm going to be sharing about what happened to Celeste. So just to be forewarned if you have not seen this video as of yet.
Bombshell tonight. A star musician, multi-millionaire musician, D4VD, aka David Anthony Burke, watches while Celeste Rivas, 13, a little schoolgirl, 13, bleeds out in a hidden kiddie pool. Bleeds out in a kiddie pool while he stands there and watches. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. This little girl partially skeletonized. Her left eye gone.
We don't know why they wanted to keep it secret for so long.
When I read this, I felt nauseous. I got hot all over because I think of Celeste as that little girl. Repeat. I have just reviewed the People's Brief regarding preliminary evidence in State versus David Anthony Burke. And I've got to tell you, I prosecuted a lot of homicides. I've handled cases where bodies were rendered, all sorts of cases. This is beyond practically anything I've ever seen. Joining me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning, straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan. He is a professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. He's the author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon. He's the star of a hit podcast series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. But most important, he is a death investigator with over 10,000 death scenes under his belt. Did you read this? That's a yes, no. Yes, no. Did you read it?
Yes. I sure did.
Okay, I really don't know where to start, but can we start with he, D4VD, David Anthony Burke, stands by and watches Celeste bleed out in a blue kiddie pool. Remember the other night I was talking to you and I said, you know, what we are learning is that there are tiny fragments, microscopic fragments of blue plastic in her body, in the cuts on her body. And we were talking about, where did that come from? What could it be? Now we know that SOB placed this girl to bleed out in a kiddie pool. It's more than I can take in.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're using the term bleed out, because let me explain something to you real quick. The injury, which in my opinion, and I think that the ME coroner holds this opinion as well, is the lethal injury here is going to be the liver. Nancy, if you sustain trauma to the liver, I've seen this with stab wounds, gunshot wounds, and motor vehicle accidents. It is not a quick death. This is an agonizing death. The liver is very vascular. Next to the brain, it is the most vascular organ in the body. And so as she was laying there, having had this happen to her, where she is attacked with this weapon, and they're not being very specific here. We know it's sharp. Nancy, she would have bled out, or exsanguinated is a fancy term, but bled out into her abdomen. And it's not one of these things like a gunshot wound, all right, to the head or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here. It would have been a slow, agonizing death that she would have gone through. That experience specifically is enough to send a chill up and down your spine.
And can I just say, just listening to that again, it's so nauseating to know someone did this to someone else. Watch them. I can't even. I mean, the thoughts that's going through my mind right now, screaming in pain. I just cannot understand why somebody would do this. I want to fast forward over to the part where they were talking about how he potentially paid another student. When the parents found out what was going on, David allegedly paid a student $1,000 to get a cell phone to this girl, so they are or were still able to communicate.
The problem of youth when you try to allegedly commit a murder like this.
I love the way you said he was young. Guess what level? She was younger. 11 years old when this whole sordid thing began. Back to the evidence. You know, the orders on Amazon. Back to Susan Hendricks, investigative journalist, joining us from the field. Susan, what all did this idiot order on Amazon?
Yeah, I have a list here too, and you're right. A body bag, garbage bag, the burn cage, which I had never heard of. As you said, Home Depot, the shovel, just on and on. Picturing him on his cell phone, scrolling like we all do through Amazon, getting, I don't know, laundry detergent. No, things to get rid of a body. And you're right, just 11 years old when they first connected. 11, with braces. The parents got involved, said, no, you can't see her anymore. What'd he do? He went to her middle school, paid a kid $1,000 and said, give her this phone. And they continue to communicate. A baby in middle school.
Hold on just a moment. Can you repeat that about D4VD paying one of her classmates $1,000 so they would give Celeste a secret cell phone? What?
Yeah. Reported missing by her parents. She went back home in 2024. This was. So he goes. He drives about an hour and a half to her middle school, sees a young kid and says, here's $1,000. Give this phone to Celeste so they could keep communicating at this point. I'm picturing just a baby in braces in middle school, pays another little child $1,000, and therefore Celeste is able to get that phone.
There's so much to uncover. I'm still getting familiarized with this because I really wasn't following it. I wasn't sure if I was going to cover it. I want to start off with this. The idea of a grown man pursuing an 11-year-old girl, that's already something wrong. There's something wrong there where you are a grown man pursuing a child. And you know how I feel about that. These people are not redeemable people. They're just not. I don't care what skin color you're in. You're not a redeemable person. When your interest as a grown ass man is interested in a child, there is something wrong with you. And I see that the parents did try to step in. They took away her phone. They forbid her communicating with him. I don't know what hold he had over her where she felt safer, secure. I just cannot understand that aspect. I'm not a mother. I chose not to be a mother. I made that choice of not wanting to become a mother and parent a child. I don't know how I would have been. I know that my parents were very strict with my sister and myself. I remember in the 6th grade, I had like this boy, he called my house. My father stood right there. I couldn't even have a conversation if I wanted to, even if it was just an innocent conversation, being in the 6th grade, liking another 6th grade boy. Let me be clear with that. okay? We were all 12. My father stood right there in our conversation. So I was not really allowed to talk with boys, go out on dates with them. Why would I be thinking about dating at 12, at 11? I am a child at that time. He was a child at that time. Yes, the hormones are coming up, whatever. But to know that her parents had intervened every way that they could, and she was involved with someone who was a musician, who had money, who had clout, and maybe for her, it was hard to get away from that and feeling like there could be some kind of relationship with him, even though he was not interested in that. Because why would he be? He's a grown ass man. He can have whoever he wants at his beck and call, especially if he's throwing money around. Now, I'm sure there's going to be another side would say, well, she was a gold digger. How could she understand that at 11 years old? I doubt that she was initially looking at the money at first, because there isn't a comprehension at 11 years old. Oh my God, money. So let's get that shit out of the way. The idea was there was a grown ass man pursuing a child, not caring about how the parents felt, not stepping aside and saying, you know what, I'm a grown ass man. Like, how many times do I have to express that? Is he not thinking, why would I be going after a child? No, he's not thinking that, because again, there is something wrong with these people, with pedos. Let's be specific about that. With pedos who have no comprehension. They are thinking about how they can exert their power and control. Now let's get into the legal aspects of it that Nancy Grace talks about earlier in the video.
Trey Lovell, veteran criminal defense attorney, trial lawyer, founder of the Lovett firm, joining us out of this jurisdiction. Now I see why the prosecutor is discussing the death penalty in this case. And yes, D4VD is over 18. That's the cutoff set by the U.S. Supreme Court. The death penalty will apply if it is implemented, if it is handed down by a jury. Trey Lovell, could there be anything more aggravating? That's a term of art to prove the death penalty. The state must prove special circumstances, special aggravating circumstances. According to what the state says, they can prove in a preliminary hearing. He, David Anthony Burke, stood by and watched this little girl bleed out in a kiddie pool. They got him busted buying on Amazon, for Pete's sake. Idiot. He buys it on Amazon. It can be traced to him. And just for fun, let me throw this in for you, Trey. He used a fake name. He used a different name to buy the kiddie pool. Look, I bought kiddie pools before. I didn't have to use a fake name for it. That's just another element of proof right there. Trey, what do you do with that? A kiddie pool, he watches her, stands there and watches her as she dies. That's cold.
Well, listen, the death penalty is absolutely the most draconian, worst sentencing that we can have. So we're way ahead of ourselves. We need to establish the basic elements here. We need to establish the evidence and ensure, what this guy did. We're at the very beginning. We can't be making judgments at this point. These are egregious facts, but there's a number of things that could have happened that would mitigate the situation on his end, maybe not on somebody else's. So we're way ahead of ourselves in terms of talking about the death penalty now.
Did you say mitigation? Did you say what? Was he a Cub Scout? What mitigation is there possibly out there that would reduce the fact that the state says in writing, this isn't a courthouse room or up and down the halls outside the judge's chamber. They put it in writing. They can prove he stood there and watched her, as Joe Scott Morgan says, exsanguinate, bleed out. He watched her die.
These are allegations. Evidence has just started, and we can't get ahead of ourselves. The death penalty is the most draconian sentencing we can have in California. And we've got to make sure, that we meet the elements and we go forward. the death was horrendous, but we need to still tie him to it. There's still defenses they can have. So, at this point, we can't be judging it. We've seen one side of the evidence, that of the prosecution. The defense is just getting going. And I guarantee you, they will be poking holes in the evidence. They will have their alternative theory. We are just at the beginning.
I just think this whole thing is disturbing. It's sad. The parents are now without a daughter as much as they tried to stop it. I was talking to my parents about it yesterday, and I was saying they should have just moved out of the country. There has to be steps taken in order to stop this. Maybe have conversations with your children, both boys and girls. I mean, there's no exception here to just girls, to children as a whole. There are some sick people in this world. There are very, very sick individuals. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, possibly people in the White House. And we have to teach our children, first and foremost, teaching them code words. When a stranger goes up to you and says, "Oh, your mom is in the hospital. She told me to pick you up." Well, what's the code word? One of two things can happen. One, they will look in a state of shock, or two, they will walk away or run away. One or the other. Start screaming help to get attention from other people, or just scream. There has to be something. We live in a world today where social media influencers dominate us. Yesterday I was at the dollar store, literally had to be like 11, 12-year-old girls looking at makeup. And I get it. I've been there. I was 11. I was 12. I did want to put on makeup. I would take makeup from my mother and put it on. Or if my friends had makeup, we would put it on and then try and take Vaseline to get all of that stuff off. Not all the residue came off. My mother would look at my face and knew that I was wearing makeup. Parents are not stupid people. They know when their child is lying. They know when there's something wrong with their child. They know when there's a difference of behavior. And I think as an adult, even though I'm not a mother, I still am a person with motherly instincts and common sense to talk to your children and give them that avenue that they can come to you and speak to you freely when there is something wrong, when there is something that doesn't feel right, that your children can speak to you and talk to you. Yes, at the end of the day, you are still a parent. You still have to assert dominance. So your children have respect for you. But at the end of the day, I think it's just really important to have those lines of communication open. Teach your children when something does not feel right. If something is wrong, speak on it. Don't hold back. Don't keep it a secret because adult people who take advantage of children, I'm talking about outside the parents, should be exposed. And if a parent is doing something to a child they're not supposed to be doing, they should also be exposed. So this case is ongoing. If I have an interest in it, I will continue covering it because, sometimes I'm not interested in everything. I try my best, but it's very sad. It's very sad and it's disturbing to know this girl suffered while dying and he possibly stood there and watched the whole thing and didn't do anything. So this is Maribel Blue signing off. As always, remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other. Most importantly, take care of you and please stay safe, everybody. Bye.